This part of my hair looks poofy. This part doesn't. Even that out a little bit. Okay, hello to everybody. Let's go ahead and wait for people to join. I did not even test my settings. Let me make sure this is all good. Looks like it. Okay. If there are any problems with audio, just let me know in the comments. So good to see you all today. I'm very excited about next week's program. So a little teaser. Hey, Beth. Little teaser for next week. I am going to have my friend. Her name is Cassie Deals. We're both Cassies, so that's easy to remember. I first saw her, met her, whatever, when I was a youth pastor's wife, when we were bringing teens from our church to compete in pilots at Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais. We would do fine arts competition when we were over the school there at Lighthouse. And she has a beautiful voice, and she sang a beautiful song, and she actually ended up winning that year or something. But she has since gone on to marry a Christian young man, and she's pregnant with her fifth child. They have 3 boys and a girl, and they've raised them in the same church. And I've gotten to see her like at different meetings and things that we do with the church or camps, and we've been together for camps. She's another competitive go-getter like I am. Must be the name or something. But she also has CDs. So I forgot to mention this, but I will be buying 3 of those and using those as giveaways next week. So we will be giving away CDs of her singing. She's got a beautiful voice. And she was the child of a teen mom. Her mom had her when she was 16 years old. And she just kind of had a rough upbringing, just kind of rejected by her dad and raised eventually by her grandparents. And so we're going to kind of talk about, she's going to give her testimony. I heard her testimony. I'd never heard it, but I heard her testimony at this ladies retreat I was at this weekend. And the Lord really put it on my heart that I needed to have her on the show, because I know I have a lot of first generation moms that watch this, and you have not been raised in ideal situations. And you look at someone like me, who I was raised in an ideal situation, even though I lost my dad at 17. My dad was saved. He was a great dad. He was a great father. And I had that up until the age of 17. But my mom and dad were both saved when I was like 1. So I've only ever known the Christian lifestyle. And because of that, I do feel I have been given a better shot as far as like making good choices, being a good Christian, marrying pure, marrying the right guy, never getting involved in the bondage of sin. Whereas Cassie has not. She's not had that same luxury. So I feel like sometimes people look at me and they're just like, well, you had everything handed to you, which I still had to make my choices, right? We all have to make our choices. I did not have everything handed to me, and life was still rough, especially losing my dad at 17, but I had a very good foundation. And so I wanted to have someone on that maybe didn't have as great of a foundation. And I think that you will all really enjoy her testimony, and then we'll be doing the giveaway as well. So hi, guys. Hi, everyone, for joining. But now people are here. So let's get into the main subject, and that is living the life you want your children to choose. As a Christian raising my children, I know that I am in a competition of sorts with the world. The world is advertising a lifestyle and trying to sell it. And we are also trying to show our children that the Christian life is the best life that there is to live. As such, we must live a life worth living. We have to provide a happy, safe environment for our children to grow up in, and we have to exhibit the behavior that we want our children to emulate. I am going to talk today about living life in a way that promotes Christ, purity, goodness, and faithfulness, basically the fruits of the Spirit, right? We are the best example for a Christian to our kids. And I've had some ask me, like, why should I choose the Christian way of life, right? Why have you chosen, Cassandra, why have you chosen the Christian way of life? And for me personally, I have peace as a Christian, first and foremost. I know where I'm going when I die. I do believe that our body is body, soul, spirit, and that we have a soul that will live forever. And because of this, I've put all my faith and trust in Jesus Christ and Him alone. And that's what salvation is. It's not putting our faith and trust in our works, because we're all sinful at the end of the day. We all have flesh that we battle with every single day of our lives. But it's by putting all our faith and trust in the completed work of Christ on the cross. And because of this, I have peace. I have assurance of where I'm going to be. And for those who don't believe in Jesus and don't believe in the finished work of the cross, I just think it would be a miserable life indeed, just thinking that this is it. This is like all that I have to look forward to. But me as a Christian, I have so much more to look forward to. First and foremost, I have Jesus to look forward to. I have the thought of reuniting with loved ones that have gone on before me and are in heaven. You know, the Bible talks about we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. So I like thinking about reuniting with my dad and my grandparents that were saved and my friend Kelly and, you know, all the Christians that have gone on before me. So I have that hope. So for me, I have peace as a Christian, and I know where I'm going when I die. Number two, I saw the result of sinful choices growing up. I remember when I was a young mom, every time, because I wanted to really and like get it through my kids' heads that things like drinking, alcohol, drugs, different things like that, abusive substances that altered the mind, always produced bad consequences. So I remember I had like a scrapbook or something. And for the longest time, we would get the newspaper. So old school, right? We would get the newspaper. And every time an article would be in the newspaper about a drunk driver killing someone or a drunk driver hurting someone else, I would clip it out and I would post it in the scrapbook because I just wanted a record for my kids to see. Now we have headlines and different things like that. So we have Google. So obviously it's not the same now. But I wanted them to see the devastation of sin and what sin could do to someone's life. So I saw the result. I have always been an observer of others, and I try to take good things that I learn from people and instill it in my life, and I try to reject the bad that I see. And so I remember just different situations where maybe I had a friend as a teenager and they got involved in alcohol and they were in a drunk driving accident and they served prison time, you know, and there were other people involved where people were killed. So I saw the effects that drugs had and how people were so desperate for those drugs that they basically would sell out their family for it. Not literally sell their family, but they would have no money left over after splurging on all these drugs. They didn't have money to pay the bills. You know, maybe they were evicted, they were kicked out, they were homeless. So I watched and I didn't want to make those same sinful choices that would affect the rest of my life. I wanted a stable home. Although it's becoming more and more rare, like even among Christians. And I feel like this really fits with the over the top. I'm going to be talking a lot about being over the top. The over the top Christians that are so hardcore and so against everything. And it just creates a very, very bad environment in the home where their kids want nothing to do with it. But I'm talking about especially the ones that do things to be seen of men, you know, because our goal is not to be in good standing with others or like let them see what a hardcore parent we are, how great we are at disciplining our kids or how well behaved our kids are, because that's like indicative that, man, we're really on top of things, right? No, our goal is to get our children's hearts. And that's really the whole theme of this is having the heart of your child and having it be the most important thing. And if you're not a member, I just talked about that on the members live, a little bit more personal. It wasn't scripted. I didn't follow an outline. I just kind of spoke from the heart about how important it is to have the hearts of our children. And it really all comes, child training and child rearing comes down to that. And we'll talk about it in a little bit, but that's why you have to have the correct balance with love and correction. You know, you have to know where the line is and like, I'm being overly harsh here. I need to back off. Or I'm being too lenient and I need to be a little more strict in this area. You know, it's all about a balance game. So I did want a stable home. That's why I was very careful even about who I was going to marry. You know, I wanted a good, stable guy that was not prone to anger, that I knew would raise my kids in church and would be on board with all of my Christian values. And I got him. Thank goodness, because you never really know a person until you get married, right? You think they could be one thing and they're completely opposite of what they say, but he was the real deal. So I got him. And I've had the marriage that I always dreamt of. He has said before, we have the marriage that he wants our kids to have. So to me, that's the biggest compliment as a wife, that your husband would say that about you. So I'm very thankful that I picked a good one, because there's a lot of duds out there. So, and I truly believe that the Christian life is the happiest way of life. It's free from a lot of the bondage and a lot of the things that tie you down in the world, such as, if you think of it this way too, because I was pure when I was married and my husband was pure when he married me, we didn't have past relationships to even compare our physical relationship to, right? We learned everything together. So there's no jealousy. I'd never given my body to anyone. He had never given his body to anyone. So we learned together. And that right there is so rare today. And I still believe in purity. I still promote purity, because I truly think it's the best way, because I think it builds the strongest foundation when you get married to someone. Plus, you don't have the risks of diseases. You don't have the risks of unwanted pregnancies. You don't have the bondage from, your husband having past relationships and all these other kids that, you have to worry about child support, not moving too far away because you want to be involved in that child's life. And there's just a lot of things that can really tie you down by making the wrong choices in life. So, hey guys, I got a lot in the live chat. So good to have you here. But I truly believe it's the happiest way of life, and it's free from so much bondage in the world. So how should we live a life that our children want to choose? Number one, we are the same at home as we are everywhere. So sometimes my kids will be like, Mom, don't yell at me. And it's not even yell. It's like, Chloe Elizabeth, don't do that. Especially my teenagers, they don't want me to ever get after them like in public in front of people. And I try not to. Okay, I do try to honor their wishes, but sometimes I just have to. And I'll tell them, I'm like, listen, they'll be like, Mom, somebody's going to hear you. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm the same. We've had people stay in our home for weeks on end, like the O'Hagans from Ireland. And I am the same way around them, that I am all the time. Like, I don't try to mask who I am. If I have to get after the kids, I have to get after the kids, So, but that's just how my husband and I have always tried to live. Now we have this running joke, like if we're going to another church or we're meeting a new family, maybe we've known them online, but we've never met them in person. We had a family move here from Florida, the Hausers, and I actually, this is the running joke in the McMurtry home. So we'll pull up to a place and we'll be like, now we want these people to like us. So, let's just remember that we want these people to like us. And so that's like the running joke, like we want these people to like us, but my kids know it's a joke too. We joke about that. And, so that's like the running joke, but no, the thing is I have people stay in our home all the time. So I'm the same in the home that I am at church. I don't try to mask anything. I don't try to hide anything, because I've always known that one of the biggest killers of Christianity for kids is seeing hypocrisy. Their family walks into church on Sunday and they're all like, hey, how you doing? All pleasant and happy, after they've just screamed at each other the entire way there in the car. That's not cool. So you need to be the same all the time. Whatever standard you have in the home, you need to have that standard wherever you are. Or don't pontificate about how you have a standard to other people and you're not living that in your home. So for us, we've always been very careful that we didn't want to be one way outside the home that we were in the home or whatever. So number two, obviously have a happy home. Okay. It has to be happy. I'm not talking about bad days. There's going to be stressful days. Some things in life are just stressful. Okay. Like school, getting all the kids through school every day. There's going to be a little element of stress there, like always prevalent. there. I'm not talking about like non-stress in your home, okay? But you can keep your stuff together. You don't have to lose it. Every day doesn't need to be war zone. You don't need to be screaming at your kids. Every day it can be happy. You can still have those happy moments. Take the time to laugh. You know, once school is done for the day, let your kids enjoy themselves a little bit. Let them have chill time, whether that's playing a video game. I do not think all video games are evil and sinful. I do not think all television shows are evil and sinful. And once again, that comes to being over the top, just deeming everything as wicked, deeming everything as evil, saying that everything is a sin. Not everything is a sin. There are wholesome shows out there. There are wholesome video games. Mario is about as wholesome as you can be. The Mario movie, super cute. Okay. So there are wholesome things out there. Not everything is a sin. Not everything is a wicked. And we need to be careful as parents, not demonizing things that aren't wicked or sinful, not making things into sins that aren't sins. We need to be really careful about that. And the over the top people are the ones that have like deemed everything a sin. And then there's just no room for pleasure at all in the home. And it's just work, 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 all play. What's the saying about all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy or something like that? It's just a little saying, but I kind of agree with it. Kids need to be free to be outside playing. They need to be free to have some side activities. It needs to be a happy place for the majority of the time. We have to have a peaceful home. If you and your husband are screaming at each other constantly, if you're screaming at the kids constantly, that's not going to be peaceful. There's not going to be, they're not going to feel at rest in the home. And I want my kids, even my adult kids, when they come home to like be at rest, not have to walk on eggshells, not worry about ticking me off or ticking their dad off or whatever it is. I want it to be a peaceful home. And then have a home that's balanced with love and correction. And I kind of talk about this a little bit later about being balanced in love versus correction. But like I said in my members only, you can't have all correction and no love, but you also can't have all love and no correction. I do believe in biblical discipline. I was biblically disciplined, and I took what was good from that, and I kept doing it with my own children. But there were some things I didn't necessarily agree with the way I was raised. And so I decided I wasn't going to do that with my kids. And we haven't. And so far, that has worked out really, really well. So, baking soda peroxide, what does that even mean? I have no idea what this person is talking about. So, okay. But I did get a question today, and I really wanted to read part of it. I'm not going to say who it was from, but she asked me a bunch of questions because she is, I believe, first generation Christian. But she said, I'm curious about your thoughts on delayed obedience is disobedience. Philosophy of parenting. If and when you shift away from spanking as a punishment and more towards conversation, empathy, and reaching the heart, and balance the need for respect and obedience as a parent and discipline while also respecting the personhood of our children and the goal of raising strong men. And I really appreciate that question because I think it's a really good one. And I can only tell you what we have done with our children. I am not even going to get into the whole discussion about whether or not you believe in corporal punishment or whether or not you do. That's a whole another subject for another day. On this channel, I believe in biblically raising our children, and the Bible still talks about corporal punishment. That being said, I do think that as Christian parents, we need to be very vigilant that we do not ever cross that line into what would be considered abuse. And I do not agree with this philosophy of breaking the spirit of a child or breaking the will of a child, because I believe that the strong will can carry you through some very tumultuous times in your life. And that strong will can be used to stand strong on things of the Lord, because that's what it's done with me. I've always been a strong-willed child. My mom didn't really ascribe to this either. To her credit, she never was like trying to break my will. And I'm so thankful for that, because my strong will has made me who I am. It's made me Cassie McMurtry. It's made me very resolute in my standards and my convictions and my walk with God. And being married to a church planner, that strong will has come into, I've needed this strong will. If I did not have such a strong will, I would have like begged him to quit years ago, years and years and years ago. This is too hard. I can't do this. But it's enabled me to push through the hard times. So I do not believe in this breaking the will because let's face it, a lot of kids have very, very strong wills, and every kid is different. And that's why you need to adapt differently to every child. Every child has different needs, and every child learns through correction in different ways. So I don't have a one size fits all. And I think it's dangerous to just do a 10 bullet point. This is what you need to do to raise each child. For us, we veer away from corporal punishment by the time our kids are 12, 13. By that point, you should have their heart. And so we've never had the need for corporal punishment into their teenage years. And for me, I think that breeds a spirit of resentment and bitterness because at that point, you should have the heart of your child and they should fear a tongue lashing from you more than anything. And my husband can give some really good tongue lashings when needed. And my kids have, thankfully, we've never had a rebellious child, but it's in their teens. And I think part of it is because they really, truly do care about disappointing us. They want to please us. And that's natural. Every kid wants to please their parent. Every kid wants their parent to love them, and every kid wants to love their parent. So if you don't have that there's something wrong, right? So, it can be really, really hard. And it all comes down to a heart issue. So for us, we do veer away from that by the time they're in their teen years. We have never had the need to do that because they are concerned about what we think and they're concerned about our heart and we're concerned about their heart. And now all that to say, there has not been times when we have had very late night talks and it's a lot of work. And because we've always been concerned with the heart. So when we find out something's going on that's not kosher, that's not okay, we try to get to the heart of the matter. And sometimes that takes a lot of time and that takes a lot of effort, that takes talking, that takes praying, that takes digging. So it's in and of itself, sometimes I think a spanking would just be easier, but we're not interested in the easy. We're interested in getting to the heart of the problem, getting to the root of the problem. So yeah. So, and then too, like I said, every kid is different. And so, I have some that are much more sensitive. Pretty much Abby from the time she was born, you could just be like, Abigail, joy. And it broke her heart. That was literally all it took sometimes. That's literally all she's almost 20 and never been rebellious, not a rebellious bone in her body. And literally Abigail joy. That's all it would take. And some kids are like that. And because they want to please you so much, right? And that's a normal thing. It's a normal thing to want to please parent. So, but I think that balancing that love and correction, you can't have the correction. Most kids are they know like, okay, I needed to be disciplined for this, right? And they'll accept that as long as there's a lot of love to balance that out. You have to tell your kids you love them. You have to hug them. You have to give them physical affection, even when they're teenagers and they don't want to. I still hug my sons every time I see them. Every time we leave, we still say, I love you. Every time we say goodbye, you have to have that physical affection and that love is there. And then also just not disciplining in anger. This is one thing we've also really tried to do. If you need to, put that child in a safe spot, close the door, walk away. You don't ever want to punish in anger. And you also want the punishment to fit the crime, right? Usually a couple swats is about all it's going to take. So, but yeah, I do not believe in this breaking the will thing going on and on and on and on and on and on. And then I don't believe in disciplining until they're old enough to communicate. So, sometimes a swat on the hand is all it's going to take for, a toddler that's about to do something very dangerous when they need a little bit of a wake-up call. But I do not believe in physical anything on a baby, obviously. And then I feel like 3 to 5 is a really good training time. And that's when a swat or 2 will suffice. So, but as they get older, you're not really going to need, that should definitely stop eventually. You shouldn't be spanking your kid the day of their wedding. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. At that point, something is off. So, for us, living a life that our children want to choose, we try to make good memories, whether that is going and doing fun things as a family. We have our summer memories we do. We have our fall memories we do. We have our Christmas memories we do. We have our winter memories that we make. We just really want to have more good memories in our kids' heads than bad memories. And we exhibit to our children the qualities we want our kids to have: love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, faith, and action, temperance. We exhibit all of those qualities that we want our kids to have, because we are our biggest teacher. Our lives are our biggest teacher to our children. Our spirit is our biggest teacher. Our temperament. We can talk all day long till we're blue in the face, but they're going to grow up emulating what they see in the home. And then we see each child as a human being who can have an impact on the world, and they can. Each one of your children can have an impact on the world. And that's what you need to keep in mind. Like, I am molding these humans that can, they can take out the world by storm. And that's why I encourage you to don't squelch that strong will. Rather, redirect that strong will into good things, be a soldier for Christ, stand against the evils of the world, stand against sin, stand against injustice, stand against things like murders of babies and, abortion, whatever that is. Teacher, redivert your kid's strong will to the good things of life, the things that really matter, the things that he can, make a difference in. So, and then having a happy marriage. This is so important to this competition thing with the world, right? Christians should have better marriages than those of the world. We have common goals that we're all working towards. We have a common love for Jesus Christ. We have the common foundation of our salvation in him and raising good, godly kids. So Christians should have better marriages, but unfortunately, the rate of divorce is about the same in Christian homes as it is in worldly homes. And that's really sad to me, because I'm ashamed of Christians who can't be exemplary in this area. So every marriage is hard. Our marriage has been difficult in seasons. We all have difficult seasons. I would say we're like at the best point we've ever been, because it's continually gotten better. I would say for us, the first 5 years were the hardest, because we're just getting to know each other. We're two different people from different backgrounds being raised different ways. And we had 3 kids in those 5 years. We might have had 4 kids in 5 years. Let's see. We were married in 2001. We had 2002, 2003, 2004, 2007. So in 6 years, we had 4 kids. So that's a lot of stress, and that's a lot of adjustments that we had to make. But your marriage should continually get better as you get older. So have the marriage you want your kids to have. If you're constantly fighting and there's constantly turmoil and you're at odds with each other, you're not going to want the same thing for your kids. Think in your mind, what is the type of marriage I want my kids to have? Is it a pleasant one? Is it one where they get along? Is it one where they're best friends? And then strive to have that marriage. Date your spouse. So date your spouse, show your spouse love in front of your kids. Cynthia, are you asking me, how do you stop the boys from hitting, wrestling, and yelling? I feel like that's just who boys are. Okay, don't take lessons from me on how to have a quiet home, because the McMurtry home is not quiet. Uh-oh, did you lose audio? Looks like it's going still. It should be going. Let me know if there's any audio problems. Don't take lessons from me on how to have a quiet home, because my home is not quiet. My home is very loud and very chaotic. And I only had 2 boys. So I feel like I'm not even qualified and like doing a lot of boyish questions, because my 2 boys were always loud and always crazy. And my oldest boy is still loud and crazy when I'm around with the babies. And he has them all hyper and all wound up right before I put them to bed. That's just a boy thing. So I would say, personally, I would embrace some of the chaos, Boys have, even when they're younger, they have a need to like wrestle and a need to conquer things and a need to like subdue things. And that's why they wrestle with each other. So for me, it's just, and they've always just wrestled and I've just put up with it. I think it's okay as long as it doesn't get mean and nasty. But boys kind of like, even when they fight, they'll like punch each other out, right? And then they're just like best friends 2 minutes later. Girls, we like hold grudges forever. So that's the difference in the boys and the girls. My girls can be having a spat and it will last for days. My boys will have a spat and they're literally like laughing and joking with each other 2 seconds later. So that's how it is with boys. So I would just embrace some of the chaos. But yeah, show your spouse love in front of your kids. Your kids have to see that you guys love each other, you care about each other. Um, Another important thing is having a unified front when it comes to your decision regarding raising the kids, what rules you have, how you want your home run, how you spend the money, etc. So, you have to be unified. My kids know I have to run things by dad first. And oftentimes I'll tell them, I don't really see an issue with that, but I think your dad might have an issue. And because of that, we're going to say no to this. Or, I think dad would be okay with that. I think it's fine. And I know after 23 years of marriage, I know after a couple decades of marriage, what he will approve and what he won't. And so on that front, we're unified. He also knows that there's some things I'm a little more strict in, and it's not being a wuss to like, go with what your wife wants, men, just putting that out there. It's not being a leader by, going with your wife's wishes when it comes to things like maybe bedtime or shows they can or can't watch or whatever that is. So you should both be unified in the way that you approach your parenting, and don't pit one parent against the other. Don't be pitted against each other. That's one of the worst things you can do with your kids. So your kids learn conflict resolution from watching you and your spouse. They watch, and it's, for me, I feel like it's okay if there's ever an argument. I don't try to shield my kids from never seeing us argue, but then they also see that we've made up, everything's great. It's never like this awkward feeling of, oh no, mom and dad are going to get divorced now. That's never been a thought in my kids' heads. They know that even if we argue sometimes, we're going to make up and things will be back to normal the next day. So your spouse should be your best friend. He should be your confidant. He should be your safe place. And your kids need to see that to feel safe and feel protected and feel at peace in the home. And that's just part of having a peaceful home, is having a happy marriage as well. So have a balanced home. Be careful beating your chest about rules you're going to have and things your kids will never do when you have little kids at home. Be very, very careful. It's going to come back to bite you one of these days. So, and then, if things change, be open and honest about it. Yeah, we used to be this way and we found out that we were being a little too over the top. We used to put you to bed at 6 p.m. and we just figured out that was a little over the top. So now we do 7:30. Yeah, we used to not even let you watch Dora the Explorer because all TV was evil and wicked, but we've since figured out that Dora the Explorer is totally fine. So yes, we let your siblings watch it. You don't have to hide the fact that some things have changed because you've learned and you've aged and you've grown with wisdom as you become a parent and you get more experience, right? So be very careful. That being said, be very careful. My kid will never watch a Disney movie. My kid will never, I don't know, bite another kid, because we all get a biter. Every single one of us. Abby was a biter. Hannah's been a biter. A lot of how Abby was as a kid, Hannah's a lot like her. And Allie. So like Abby, Allie, Hannah, they're kind of my ones that are like more similar. And like Lana and Chloe are more similar with each other. Kelly's kind of like her own unique hodgepodge. I don't know. She's kind of unique, but just be very careful about beating your chest about rules when you have all little kids. Just give it a little bit, raise an adult, and then people can listen to what you say. Choose your battles. I see some that are all about like, they turn everything into a battle. If you do that, your house will be a war zone because it will always be wills competing with each other. There should just be some basic guidelines or rules in your home, like obedience. And I've heard the argument, what about delayed obedience is not obedience? Well, sometimes there are certain situations where with my kids, if I tell them to do something and they're doing another chore I already told them to do, obviously I'll be like, okay, wait until that's done and then do this. So um I don't know. There's different schools of thought on that. Maybe I'm too lenient, but maybe I encourage a little bit of free think too much in my house. My basic rules are I want you to obey me with a good attitude. And I don't, obviously, the basic things in the Mercury home, you don't cuss. And that being said, my kids would never be allowed to say a cuss word. Well, then I'm not going to say a cuss word because if the way I talk is the way my kids are going to talk. So that is a very hard rule in the McMurtry home. The language, we don't use the world's language. That's just a no, we're not doing that. We're different. We're Christians. We're not going to use the world's language. No alcohol, no smoking, there's little things like my husband doesn't like hair dye for the girls. He doesn't want the girls like me turning their hair like different colors. So I don't dye my hair because of that. There's different things like piercings. I have pierced ears because I got them when I was 12. But for our girls, he's like, if you want piercings after you're married, that's totally fine. But I just don't want to even go there in our home. So we're not even going to do that. Like, we're not going to do piercings, tattoos, different things like that. That's just McMurtry rules. We've always held to those. So those are obviously some rules that my kids know. But as far as raising them, no hitting, no, I don't like the fighting with the siblings, yelling, screaming. I don't like any of that. So there are some things. Now, you could make everything into a battle, though, if you wanted. Whether that's, I don't know, no snacks, or that's just not something I'm gonna pick my battles. That's not something I'm going to battle over. Whether or not your kids have to sit there for 4 hours straight while doing their schoolwork and they can't get up to go to the bathroom, I'm not going to make that into a battle. So I give my kids a little bit more leeway when it comes to that. No TV in the home, never watching a TV show. That's not a huge battle in my home. Video games, not a huge battle in my home, with exceptions. There are things I don't want. Like, I don't want video games with language. Obviously my girls, I think, like, I don't even know, like Mario games, maybe they play, but there's some things I'm not going to make into a battleground because then everything will become a battle. And I'm really careful about that. And I think moms stress out too much, and they really create a lot more stress for themselves by doing this. Don't be over the top when it comes to things. Listen to qualified advice. So my advice is know the people that you follow, like in real life. Okay. So like, know the people you follow so that you can look at their fruit. Okay. So their fruit would be adult kids, kids that they've raised, right? I'm not going to listen to someone that has a 2-year-old and a newborn. They probably don't even know what they're talking about. They're probably over the top. They probably think they have all the answers because that's how we all are when we have little kids. And you learn that you don't have all the answers. But there have been real life people in my own life, such as the Angel family. I know I'm mentioning them again, but we're talking about the home, such as the Angel family, that I have followed their advice because I've seen their fruit. Every single one of their 6 kids are in full-time Christian ministry. They only have good things to say about their parents, and they're raising their grandkids in this same exact lifestyle. They've chosen this life over the world's life, and that speaks volumes to me. So there have been IFB guys I don't agree with on all doctrine, but when it comes to the doctrine that matters the most to me, raising kids, and where kids are that's like my heart's cry, is that I raise good, godly kids, right? That's the most important thing to me. When it comes to that doctrine, I will follow them. I don't care what their eschatology is. When it comes to the doctrine in the home and behavior, I will follow them. So the Angel family is one. They had raised an adult by the time we started raising kids. So I saw that their methods worked. I know them in real life. I've had conversations with them. I've sat and eaten with them. I know them. They're not just some mystical person that I've never like interacted with at all. So I really encourage you to know who you're taking advice from and It's okay to judge fruit. It's okay because we are raising human beings with souls, and that's huge. And so we have to be very careful when it comes to this. All right. So know the people you follow. Be balanced in love versus correction. I already mentioned that. Be balanced in your standards and convictions and live a life you can live long term. This isn't just something that you try on one day and see if it's going to fit. Okay. Because you have too much at stake. You've got your kids' lives at stake. You've got your kids' you're shaping who they're going to be as an adult. You're shaping the way they think, the way that they feel. You're shaping so much when it comes to the people in your home. You have to be really careful. It's not something that you just try on and, oh, we'll see if it fits one day. And then the next day you just throw it to the wayside. You have to be really, really careful to be balanced in standards convictions because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I fully intend to live this way until I die. And because of that, I had to establish things that were livable. Okay. So what would that be? Well, even when it comes to like clothing standards, some people can be over the top with that. Your skirt has to be to your ankle and you have to have sleeves down to your elbow and you have to look like the Amish. What are you going to do when it's 110 degrees outside and you're like dying of heat stroke? Be careful doing standards that are so over the top you can't even live them for the rest of your life. And then be resolute. Don't compare your home to other homes. We've never done that. It's never been a competition to see who can be the most spiritual, because I would have been thrown out a long time ago because we have a TV in the corner of our living room, right? I would have been thrown out. I lost the race a long time ago. I'm not super hardcore, so don't come to me looking for hardcore advice. I'm living a life that I believe is sustainable and I believe is the best life. And I live it with conviction because all my standards that I have in place of life in my life, whether that's wearing a skirt and, a shirt that's high enough to cover my nakedness as defined in the Bible, I do that out of conviction. I don't do that just to see if it's going to work. I've been doing that for over 2 decades now. So you have to be balanced and you have to be resolute in what you decide that you're going to like, what standards you're going to have for your home. And you can't constantly be like, the McMurtry's don't do this, so I don't think we're going to do it either. The McMurtry's do this, so we're going to start doing this. It might not work for your family. It might not fit with your family. Every family is different and every family has to have different rules and guidelines that they live by. But I would encourage you to make sure that it has a biblical basis. Make sure that you have Bible to back it up. If you are trying to live life as a Christian, make sure you have Bible to back it up. Don't do things for the commandments of men. Don't just make up things, like podcasts are evil by women, because it's internet church or something. That's ridiculous and stupid. And it's not even biblical. When you look at the context of women not speaking in the Bible, it's in a teaching setting in church. Like there's a preacher preaching when this is going on, not a YouTube channel. So just making up over the top things like podcasts are evil, podcasts are sinful. Like Lori Alexander does with, no woman should have a side thing because, when I look at the Proverbs 31 woman, I see a woman who had lots of side things going on, but was still able to run the home. And I see a very intelligent woman. I see a very strong and determined woman who had lots of irons in the fire. So that's not what I see when I see the Proverbs 31 woman. But yeah, don't ever compare your home to other homes. Don't ever do something just because someone else is doing it, but have the convictions and Bible to back up what you're doing for you. So I'm sorry, I'm not looking at any of them. Someone's talking to Miranda. If I'm getting this story right, Miranda, your husband is not in the picture. He might be bent to destruction because there's some kind of anger inside that's coming out in those actions. So yeah, once again, looking at the heart of things, I would really try to dig and talk to him. Maybe take him out for a fun time, something that is really, really fun that he likes doing, going to Legoland or going to an amusement park. And in the car ride there, kids are really receptive when they're in a car ride side by side, especially men. Men talk better side to side. I don't know why that is, but they talk better when they have something going on, right? They have, they're multitasking in a way. I would try to get to the heart of things, try to explain where you're coming from. Like, I understand you're going through a hard time now, but, the way to express that isn't by destroying something, because that's going to hurt me because then I have to pay to to fix it. Maybe the right consequences for the actions. If he does destroy something that costs money, he then has to do chores to repay that, and then him having to work that debt off kind of will show him that with his actions comes consequences. Because if you don't nip it in the bud or get to the heart of why he's being destructive, this is going to carry over into his teen years. And then soon he'll be painting graffiti on things. And then the law will have to step in. So if he doesn't learn it young, by the time he's older, the law will have to take matters into their hands. And then they will enforce it with jail time, fines, different things like that. So, but I would say get to the heart of the matter. Kids usually do things based off of how they're feeling. Kids are very feeling-led individuals, right? We learn to start kind of masking this as we get older to adapt to societal norms. So, but that's why I love kids, because you always know what a kid is thinking, and a kid will always tell you, does this outfit make me look fat? Yeah, it does. You look really big. Okay, thank you, Johnny. He's always going to tell you what he thinks. So that's why I love kids, because they're so honest. They're honest to a fault. So I would definitely not look so much at his actions and my kid's always breaking things and blah, blah, blah. What do I do? No, why is he breaking things? Look at it that way. I've always tried to encourage moms, you've got to get to the heart of things. Why is your kid lying to you? Why is your kid sneaking around? Why is your kid rebelling against every standard that you've had in the home? There's something wrong in the heart. You've got to get to the heart of it. And when you address the heart of things, it kind of clears up why they're doing what they're doing. So that's what I would suggest. I hope that helps. But yeah, have Bible for what you believe, why you believe what you believe. Know how to explain your beliefs to your kids. You aren't living this life to impress others. You aren't living this life so you can beat and thump your chest and say, look at what a great parent I am. I have all of my ducks in a row. All of my children are little robotic creatures that listen to my every command and jump when I say jump. And they ask how high and they do it immediately. That's not why we're raising our kids this way. We're raising our kids because overall we believe the Christian life is a better life. And so we're trying to get these concepts into their heart, right? We're living this life. I'm living this life because I believe it's the best life. And my kids are my biggest mission field. If I fail to reach my children, if I fail to show my children how great the Christian life is, why am I even doing this? Because they are my biggest mission field. And ministry families, I'm going to talk to you for a second. Don't pit your kids against the church members and don't use them as the perfect example of everything. You want your church to cheer them on and be behind them. You want your church supporting their good decisions. You want your kids to be like, if I choose this way in life, it's really going to disappoint those people at church who I know are rooting for me and I know are behind me and I know are supporting me. And you don't want your church members watching for every little thing that they do wrong. So this is one thing my husband has been very good about all the years we've been in ministry. He never wanted to get up there and wax eloquent about all these stories about how his kids were perfect in this and his kids never did this and his kids always did this. And so even when we had little kids, we didn't beat our chest about things our kids would do or would not do, because he was a PK, he was a pastor's kid, and he observed a lot as a pastor's kid, watching other pastors' kids, watching ministry families. He observed that when the pastor does that with their children, they are now pitting all the kids in the congregation against that kid because no one wants to be outdone. Right? So instead of having church members root for them, they had church members watching to see when they would downfall so they could go run tattle to the pastor. And it's sad, but that's in a lot of churches. And thankfully, we've never had this mindset in our church, which I'm very thankful for. But it is a lot of times it's created by the pastor. So be really careful. Don't ever pit your church members against your children or pit your children against your church members. You want them all unified and working towards the same goal. You want your church members succeeding and rooting for your kids. So, and then if you want a life that your kids are going to choose, live a life of joy. Just don't be miserable. There's going to be bad days. And no one's perfect. We all mess up. We all lose our temper sometimes. We all yell when we shouldn't. But you have to love overall the life that God gave you. You have to love the life that God gave you. Be content when it comes to the life that God's given you. Be balanced. Be who you are at all times. Don't put a facade on. Don't try to be fake to one person and then, be another thing to another person. You've got to be the same thing to everyone. And yes. Mm. So that might be a lot of Miranda said, my ex was very abusive. And when it started to happen to my kids, I kicked him out. My son was 3 at the time, and I haven't been able to find what can help. 3 is a very formative age. It might just be the regression, the withheld regression inside coming out from that. And that's really tough. I would definitely try to find different praise can go a long way. And, have a heart to heart with him. I understand that you're hurting. I understand this isn't the ideal situation, but taking it out in anger is not going to help. Destroying things is not going to help. Why don't we do this instead? Redirection. Why don't we, instead of destroying your brother's fort, why don't we help him build a really big one, a better one? And then you both can play in it. And then when he accomplishes that, lavish praise. Great job. See, look at that. You didn't give into your feelings of anger and frustration. And you and your brother built such a great fort together. That goes a long way with kids. Redirection, focus. I've really found that this helps with Hannah because she can get big feelings, lots of big feelings, right? And so a lot of times it's not so much, you better do this or you're going to get the hammer. You have to figure out as a parent what the root problem is, and address that. So if the root problem is feelings of abandonment or all this chaos was going on in his life until he was 3, and then suddenly his dad, which every son wants a relationship with their dad. It doesn't even matter if their dad was abusive. They still crave that relationship. I'm not saying it's right or good. It's just common being a human being. Their dad's suddenly out of the picture. Then they suddenly have all this pent up rage and frustration. And it's really hard, especially as a mom, to kind of just get to the root of that problem and figure out, how can I help this? And I'm sorry you're going through it. That's really tough. You're in a tough spot. And I would definitely encourage you to get in a good, godly church, and not a church that focuses so much on, I am parent, hear me roar. Here's my wooden spoon that I'm carrying around for everyone to see. And they're going to see me like go spank my kid because I'm so hardcore and I'm such a great parent. Please don't get into a church like that. I don't think that's going to help his situation. Rather get into a church with balanced, godly families that understand that most of correction, 99% of correction, should take place at the home, not at church where everyone can see them. And parents who don't use correction as a way to make themselves look better to everyone else, but they're really concerned about the heart of the issue. And that's why most of it's taken care of in the home. So get into a place that has good, godly families that are raising good kids, and really try to pick their brain, ask them what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and get your child surrounded by other good Christian kids. I think it's so important for kids to be surrounded, especially if they're preachers' kids, not surrounded by Christian kids who are in competition with them, which is why you don't pit church members against your kid, but around Christian kids that really love the Lord and want to make good decisions with their life and want to follow the Lord. Having good, godly friends is so important. So yeah, that's what I would recommend for you to do. And I'm really sorry. I'm free for you to message. If you want, free to message. That's nice. I'm going to check that out, Marissa. I trying to think of things off the top of my head as far as like raising kids. I haven't read too many books that I wholeheartedly agree with when it comes to raising kids. So I'm open for suggestions too. I've pretty much tried to base my methods off of the Bible and then watching other godly families that have done it. I'm following in their footsteps, basically patterning my life after them. So Lastly, just love God, love your husband, love your kids, because love does cover a multitude of mistakes and sins. And I think at the end of the day, if our kids can see the love that we have for God, if they can see the love that we have for their dad, if they can see the love that we have for our church, and if they can see the love that we have for other people outside of our church, if they can see that and they know that we truly love people and we love others, they're going to be apt to forgive a lot of the stupid things we do and a lot of the mistakes that we make. And especially if we own up to it and be like, I was too hard on you when you were younger, and I really regret that. And so I'm going to strive not to be that way with your siblings. Or, you know, I really messed up in this area and I'm going to be better. Like, we're not going to have a crazy household anymore. Like, there's not going to be yelling and screaming and fighting. We're going to try to eliminate that because we're a home that's trying to honor God. And I don't think it honors God when this is going on, when the house is a war zone. I don't think it honors God when I'm nagging your dad constantly. I don't think it honors God when I'm fighting with your dad constantly. And you just are open and honest with your kids. If you're open and honest with your kids, that's so important for healthy relationships. It's not all about them being perfect little robots. It's about gaining their heart and gaining their trust and showing them that the Christian life is the best life that there is. And I firmly believe that. And I will always believe that. And God's ways are the best ways. But you have to have a happy home. You have to have a happy life. You have to be content. You have to sell your kids a better product and show your kids a better product than that of the world. Whoa, my microphone almost just fell. Well, let me do that again. You have to show your kids and you have to sell your kids a product that is better than that of the world. So those are my final thoughts on it. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'm looking forward to next week. Definitely tune in. There will be a CD giveaway. I know CDs are a little outdated, but we're going to do it anyways. Aw, I do love God, Reese. Thank you. That's really cute. She said, Miss Sandra loves God. She's so cute. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I know CDs are a little outdated, but we're going to do it anyways. Very pretty. She has a very beautiful voice, and I think you're going to really enjoy listening to her perspective from someone who was raised a little bit differently than me. So I like to have guests on that have different perspectives and different upbringings than me. So I think you are going to really enjoy that. So tune in next week. It's going to be earlier because her kids go to a Christian school. So she has a quiet home right now during school hours. So it's going to be like 1:30 Central. So we'll be a little bit earlier next week. But anyways, guys, love God, love your husbands, love your kids, and have a